L'chaim and a good yom tov, everyone. So this is probably a little bit of a surprise. Looks like I fell down from the moon. What's a guy with a shtreimel doing up here at this gathering? And if I had Yechi on my shtreimel, look from the top, from the bottom, it would be an interesting question of how do you put Yechi on a shtreimel? That I would let the Mavinim figure out. The reason I'm here tonight is because I was asked to speak. And why was I asked? Is because of a viral video that went out a couple of months ago. I spoke in Los Angeles for Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, Epis Aninyan. And today's days, there's no secrets. Someone took a video, and they asked me permission. And before I knew it, it spread everywhere. And based on that video, they asked me to speak. So let me give you a little bit of background, where I'm coming from. Mentioned before, I don't come from a Chabad background, as you can see. And I come from a Chassidish background, grew up in Borough Park. I was always a thinker, I was always searching. For whatever reason, when I was 17 years old, B'Hashgach Elyono, learning in Slobodka Yeshiva, I ended up going to Kfar Chabad for a Shabbos. This is in Tavshin Mem Tes, Yud Beis Tammuz. And I came there for Shabbos. And Motzosi, I found that Shahava Nafshi, this is what my soul was searching and longing. I heard that Mendel, he didn't fabrein a Mendel foot the fast, but I was just glued to him. I heard Shiurim, Reb Zalman Gopin gave a shir in the Maimon from the Rebbe, and it blew me, it took me completely. I came back to Slobodka, and my soul was on fire. I'm learning and I'm trying to grab as much Chassidus as I can. I can't get enough. I learned with Reb Zalman Lando. I learned with Reb Mendel Wechter. And fine, I'm learning, fine. Until, in the end, my badge of honor. They kicked me out of Slobodka. So I don't have a Yechi pin, but I have my badge of honor. I was kicked out of Slobodka, fine. I'm a Sidus Nefesh for Chassidus. That was, now the time that I came to Lubavitch was in Mentes. And at that time was the height of the Moshiach frenzy. And I kind of was swept in to this feverish excitement about Moshiach. And we had Memches, Memtes, and it only became more intense, Nun Aleph, Nun Beis. And I was completely absorbed in this and excited. And I was waiting every moment for the Hizgalus. There was no shadow of a doubt in my mind. It was so clear. And you're going to ask a question. You're going to say, I had no exposure to Lubavitch. I went to all the Rebbes in the world, but even though I lived in Borough Park, mir käme nicht eingefallen to go to Crown Heights. So you're just totally new to Lubavitch. How do you have such a metamorphosis, such a transformation, such radical things? So I'll tell you. You see, initially when I was growing up, my Yiddishkeit was very superficial. I didn't really have a deep inner appreciation of what it means, Torah and mitzvahs, the purpose of creation, the world. And the hashkafa that I had, whether it was a Litvish hashkafa, this, we're here to go to Olam Haba, we're here to reach Shleimus and perfection, it didn't speak to me. It didn't speak to me. Quite on the contrary, there was something in me that rejected it very strongly. And when I started learning Chassidus, suddenly it came alive. The Alter Rebbe opened up the whole world. And I remember learning, I started at Shara Yichud Ve'emunah. I remember learning how everything in the world, every moment is being nishava b'shah, every rega b'chol rega v'rega. The Baal Shem Tov's teaching that the Eibishter is mahava b'chol rega v'rega. The words that the Eibishter spoke to create the heaven is right now creating the world right now. And I remember walking in the streets of Bnei Barak, and it filled me with such joy, because more than the philosophy, more than the intellect, Chassidus resonates. It resonates in the neshama. It speaks to your etzem. It fits. It goes in. It makes sense. The neshama is makabelit. This was my experience. Fine. And then when I turn around, after suddenly Yiddishkeit makes sense, there is life, there is true neshama, there is infinite depth. The inyan of Dira B'Tachtoinim, the whole purpose is down here in this world. Gewald. Then I turn around, and now I'm miskarev to the Rebbe. My initial attraction was to Chassidus. Now I'm miskarev to the Rebbe, and I'm observing the Rebbe, and I learn Basi Legani. And I read that when the Rebbe was a little boy, when he was and he says in the letter, for when I went to Cheder, and even before this, exactly the Lashon, that the images of Geula started forming in my mind. And again, the Rebbe is speaking that even before he starts going to Cheder, he's already thinking about the redemption of the world. Now, I've heard many stories, and you've heard of Gedolei Yisrael, Tzaddikim, great men, who when they were very young, you saw already in them certain, great genius. They learned, they knew. They say about the Alter Rebbe, when the Alter Rebbe was a little boy, I don't remember exactly which age, I didn't look this up, maybe 3, 4 years old. The Alter Rebbe says that it was already clear by him, started feeling the sense, the idea of Neshamas Ani Asisi, that there's two Neshamas, a Nefesh Elokis and a Nefesh Bahamis. This is not ordinary information. This is only a person who's destined to write the Tanya, the person who's here to bring these truths in the world. This person feels this when he's 2 years old. This is not just information. This is not knowledge. This is an intuition. This is in a deep, intrinsic neshama gefeel. So here I'm looking and I see the Rebbe writing a letter like this. Or 2 years old. This is before even you can process knowledge. This is intrinsic. Then we read Basi Legani. And we read how the Rebbe speaks about 7 generations. That there's 2 times 7 generations. The 7 generations at the beginning, to bring the Shekhinah down to the world the first time at the Mishkan, beginning with Avram Avinu, ending with Moshe Rabbeinu. And then there's again 7 generations that right before Moshiach comes, that have to bring the Shekhinah Lamata Ba'aretz. You learn that Maimah, it becomes absolutely clear from the very beginning what the Rebbe is saying. The Rebbe is comparing himself, the 7th generation, to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is a Goyel, and he's the Goyel, and this is the 7th generation, and there's no Shaila, and it's so clear. And even though Lubavitchers in general, it took a while for us to catch on what the Rebbe was saying, even though it was so clear. And then you start looking at the years. First of all, the first 10 years, I'm not the biggest historian, so excuse me if I make a little mistakes. But the first 10 years from the Sichos that you learn, you get the sense that the Rebbe needed to create Chassidim. Even though we had 7 generations of Chassidim, but the Rebbe needed to create Chassidim on a whole different level. Chassidim Baalei Kabbalas oil that are not going to ask questions. Chassidim that are going to be soldiers, are going to do what he tells them to do. Obviously, if the Rebbe is going to conquer the entire world, so you need to have people, you need to have a team. Who's going to do it with you? So the Rebbe for 10 years is developing Chassidim. And then afterwards, and at that time there is Shlichus already, but it starts growing. At a certain point it becomes the concept of a Beis Chabad. What's that? That's an embassy. And it reaches Kol Katzvei Teva, like we see today, a network of embassies across the entire world. Never in the history of the Jewish people was there such a network, was there such a body of people dedicated for the betterment of mankind and for the elevation of the world. And the Rebbe starts a whole series of mitzvahim to reach every single yid, to be mekasher every single yid with a mitzvah, preparing the world for the Geula, unbelievable. But the Rebbe gives names. For instance, the Rebbe names one of the Mitzayim Neshek. Neshek means weapons. Strange thing to say, weapons. What means the weapons? Since when does a Rebbe need weapons? Then the Rebbe comes and introduces Tzivus Hashem, an army. Taka, an army of the innocent, the little kinderlach, children, but still there's an army. And you think the Rebbe was doing a marketing campaign? How is he going to get kids excited? Oh, and the Rebbe came up and said, if I call them an army, you think a Rebbe kids around? But Rebbe said army. And then the tanks roll out. And I'm processing all this when I'm 17, 18, 19 years old. There's a concept of mitzvah tanks, but the Rebbe calls them mitzvah, mobile mitzvah, but the Rebbe calls them tanks. And the people in the tanks, tankisten. Since when I come from a Chassidish Welt, right? And I've known a lot of Rebbes. I never heard in the history of all Chassidish Rabbeim a Rebbe with tanks, a Rebbe with weapons, a Rebbe with an army. Rebbes don't have that. Rebbes have Mishulachim maybe. Rebbes have Moistus. They don't have these things. So right away, who has an army? Who needs an army? Who needs weapons? Who needs tanks? That's a king. It becomes clear that the Rebbe is a melech. And you can look. You can see this throughout the entire Nesius. It's getting only stronger and stronger. Then it reaches Ad Mosai. And then it gets stronger in Memches and Memtes, Nun Aleph, Nun Beis, Gewalt. We merit to hear such in Yonim Nefloim, such expressions that Rebbe says. Unbelievable things. And wow, of course, I was completely swept up in this passion and this excitement. But then something happens. We have Chav Zayin Adar, the first one, unexpected. And then a Chav Zayin Adar again. And then we're hit with Gimel Tammuz. Now I have to say like this. The first Chav Zayin Adar, the second Chav Zayin Adar, the Rebbe had the stroke, and I was able to continue in my amun and my belief and my attachment. It was because I was able to include it and say, of course, Moshiach Tzedkeinu has to go through, and there has to be an alamas vestadim and so on. I was able to kind of include it in my mind. But after Gimel Tammuz also, for a couple of months, no problem. I mean, it hurts. It was painful. But on the other hand, there is this gala v'chayzev and iskasa, and this gala v'chayzev and iskasa. There's midrashim. There's this, there's that, and we're waiting. We're still waiting for the isgalos every moment. But then, as time passes, 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, 3 years goes by. It started becoming very challenging to me personally, very difficult. For two reasons. First of all, in my own mind, things didn't make sense. And especially if you're going between people, I have family, I have relatives. People start looking at you like you're an absolute lunatic. A belief of Moshiach already then, even before Gimel Tammuz was pretty extreme. And Lubavitchers were known as Mishugoyim. But Azam Mishugana, Azatzedreita, come now. So you know what? So after 2 or 3 years, an interesting thing happened to me. And that is there were two Reuven Wolves. There was an inner me and an outer me. Deep inside, at the very core, and I know this clear, this was all along, deep inside, I knew because I knew we saw it with our own eyes. We saw the Rebbe, we saw Yechi, we saw everything happening with our own eyes. It was clear, no shaila. And that was my deeper self. That was my Simchas Torah self after a couple of L'chayims. And I remember I was once in 770 Yom Kippur, and by Ne'ilah, screaming Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. I had no problem at that moment, in that deep inner moment, to identify with my neshama's belief at the inner core that this is who he is. And it was no problem. In my mind, it's clear. Problem is, there is an ordinary self. There's a regular self. There's the more logical, thinking, rational person. And over here, I couldn't make sense out of it. And I was jealous. I was jealous when I would come to Fabrengens or I'd come to 770. And I saw people taking it bepashtos and living with it, but I couldn't relate to it. It hurt me. And then this whole subject started causing so much pain, so much inner turmoil, because it created such confusion. So what I basically did was I took the entire thing, put it in a shelf, and locked it and closed it off and let it gather dust. That means I didn't want to learn the sichos of Nunav. Not that I had anything particularly against it. I learned the hair, but I couldn't identify. It's almost like something deep died inside of me. And it hurt me, but it was kind of like in the back burner, stashed away. And life goes on, and everybody does whatever they do. This lasted till like 3-4 years ago. Something happened. It was a time in Lubavitch that sadly there was a lot of serious tragedies. And there were many people, that young people passed away, Shluchim. So there was a gathering in Los Angeles for women. And at that gathering, a lady gathering for women, in which there was a Kinus Hashluchim, or Shlucha passed away, and they made this Kinus. They asked me to speak. So I took a walk. Before I talk, I like to think, and I like that the Indian should come to me. Like, I don't like this to try to be control. So I walk and I say, whatever the thoughts, wherever my mind will go, as a simon, this is what I have to speak. And when I got up and I spoke, and this is what came to me. I was telling the people that generally, if you get cramps in your stomach, your stomach is hurting you. So what do? There's all kinds of remedies and medicines and various different things you do to hopefully help your stomach when you have a stomach ache. Fine. What happens if someone happens to be that this person who got a stomach ache is a woman who's 9 months pregnant and she's already almost holding by her labor, she's at her due date, and suddenly she gets a powerful cramp? So it obviously would be utterly insane to imagine this woman running to the pharmacy and looking for Pepto-Bismol or whatever, anything to stop her stomach ache. Lady, it's time to go to the hospital. It's time to give birth. So I said to the people, usually when these tzaddas happened in Klal Yisrael, we have a tradition. People took upon themselves fasting, tzedakah. That's all in the mindset that we're in Golus and we're staying in Golus, and now we have to ease the pain. The Eibusha should take away this extra gezeda in Golus. But yes, we're holding by the Geula. It's time to go have a baby. Now, chas v'sholom, I didn't want to legitimize the Indian that there's chevla Moshiach and there has to be pain and suffering. The Rebbe said we were yoitz already. But mitzat sheni, the Rebbe did tell us that we have to look at everything from the eyes and the perspective that Moshiach is about to happen. And therefore I said, Medarfen machen sicher that it's time to go give birth. Let's go to the hospital. Now, how do we make the baby be born? How do we bring Moshiach happen? So, I said, the Rebbe told us clearly. Azoivat, I remembered. In Nun Aleph, the Rebbe said to us clearly, beginning in Parshas Tazriah Metzora, and again, that the way, Derech HaYeshara, is to learn seriously in Yom Geula Moshiach. So I gave a fiery speech telling the women that they have to learn Yinyane Geula Mashiach. And women, b'schus nashim tzidkani, women particularly are so mekabel in Yonim, especially in Yonim Vamunah. And there were women that came over to me right afterwards. They said, we're maskim all the way, but you should give the shir. Kraina de Igrisili have a pravanka. The one who reads the letter should do it. So no choice. I had to commit to a new shir. So once a week, I started giving a shir in a Yana Geula Mashiach. Now, I taught in Yana Geula Mashiach from the Sefer Geula Mashiach ala Parsha. I decided that I'm going to start with Bereshis. I'm going to go through week by mamish every story in the Torah and find the Nekuda of Mashiach in the story. He did a wonderful job, Rabbi Dubov. He brings so many in Yonim. It was very gewaldige shiurim. But in the course of that, he brings also the sichos of Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, and it kind of forced me to learn them. And I'm learning them, and an amazing thing happened. As I am learning this, and I'm teaching it, which means I have to absorb it, I have to understand it, and then I have to verbalize it, and articulate it, and explain it to other people, suddenly I started getting more and more and more comfortable with the notion of Moshiach. Like a magic, but this is what the Rebbe told us. If you're going to learn it, then the Inyan is going to enter into you. Through Torah, it's going to enter into your neshama. Not only that, I became so infused with these concepts and ideas that I started looking at the world around me, and I started noticing that all the things that are going on in the world are the Chamamish Mashiach. And this is what the Rebbe said. If you will learn, then you will open up your eyes and you'll see in the world that everything is... And then I'm looking at the last 23 or 26 years from when the Rebbe spoke in Nun Beis, and I'm looking at all these years, and it becomes so clear that even though whatever happened, and we have a hell and the Hester, we have a concealment, but at the same time, the world is unbelievably advancing to Mashiach. In all areas, whether it's technology and so many, unbelievable. Just to mention a few, because this was happening just in the last few years, the unbelievable transformation on the political scene. Does anybody realize the miracle that just took place in the United States of America? Just from last year, we had an administration, Oichrei Yisrael, that stood for everything against that, whatever the Rebbe stood, whatever Yiddishkeit, whatever holiness stands for. And then, B'oifen Nisi completely, that has no explanation. The whole thing went, Moshe Kapoyer, miracle, no one expected it. And now we have a whole different situation. Look at the UN in just a year of an ahapachu, such of an ahapachu. And I'm coming from Los Angeles. Everybody knows a little bit what's going on now. That mamish mountains of klippa are coming down and they're falling. Horim kadoinag nomasu. Mountains of klippas are coming crashing down. It is so clear the world is moving towards Moshiach. Who are the two super leaders? And people will say to me, "Was hat das mit den Rebben?" And maybe the Eibishter is taking care. Hey, go look, the two superpowers in the world, most powerful people in the world, and there's a whole situation over here if they colluded with each other, Putin and Trump, they could look between the two of them. Both of them are dafke connected to Chabad. Dafke, these are the two most powerful people. Dafke Lubavitch. We know what happened the night before the election. The daughter of the president is seen with cameras going to daven Bam Reden. This is crazy. This is such an unbelievable thing, and you see miracles in front of our eyes. Niflos, the whole world is changing. Very, very clear. It became so clear to me. And then one more thing happened. Just 2-3 months ago, I came across a sefer that was given out at this Kinus Hashluchim last year. A sefer called In Yonah Shel Moshiach. Shalom Ber Wolf, Berel Wolf. I don't know if he's here. Maybe I'll meet him, Be'ezus Hashem. I know we communicated. And in the sefer, I saw a sefer on Mashiach. I'm always looking for something. I sat and I got so excited in the sefer, I started learning it. I couldn't put it down for a week and a half. I learned from cover to cover. I went through the entire sefer, Medafis learning. And it blew me away. Why? He took all the sichos of the Rebbe regarding Moshiach, and he systemized them in such a clear way, and it's in a manner that is so niskabel, in a way to be able to receive it and understand it and appreciate it and internalize it. And I started reading it again. Not only that, I started giving shiurim on Inyan Mashiach based on the sefer. I was so blown, but it was very special. This is what happened. Now, but as my excitement about Moshiach and the clarity and the understanding that there's, and then when I looked at the sichos, and we're learning them and we're seeing how this is our only shlichus and this is what we need to do, I began questioning myself. Am I fulfilling that which I'm a shliach from the Rebbe? Am I fulfilling my shlichus the way I'm supposed to? And not only that, it started causing me a lot of pain. That when I see Bechlal, Shluchim across the entire world from Rebbe, and I think there are so many Shluchim, so many Chassidim Shluchim, Ba'al Mesiras Nefesh, devoted to the Shlichus, but so many of them are stuck in the place where I was stuck. Not that chas v'sholem, if you would go deep and sit by a farbrengen and say a lot of l'chaims and get to the nekuda atzmis, that inner yechidische benefesh, es vet arois come in the amunah without a doubt. But because there is a lack of communication between the mind and the understanding and the deep, rich, powerful, the nekudas hayahadus that's inside, there is some kind of a disconnect. And therefore people became so afraid, because it causes pain, it causes such confusion, that shluchim across the world started becoming more and more and more removed from the inyan, to the point that the word even irritates, the word scares, the word causes people to become it's almost like a taboo word. It's a word that you don't mention. If you mention it, it creates a certain discomfort. And this started causing me so much pain. And it bothered me. Chevra, don't we get what's happening over here? Look what's happening. The Rebbe took us mamish to the threshold. He took us mamish to the place and he said, Chevra, but I need you. I need you to help me walk across this threshold. We're going to do this together. And at that moment, chas v'sholem, the thought that the army and the Rebbe's people devoted are deserting the mission, it scared me, it hurts me. And I was saying, Chevra, medarf epis ton, but people need to come back to what the Rebbe gave it to us. And I really want to speak, and I know what I'm saying is dvarim pshutim to everyone over here. But because of the channels that are available today, I hope that my words will reach many others, many other people, many other shluchim, many people around the world that are struggling. And I'm calling out and I'm saying as follows. Number one, let's not forget from Tov Shin Yud to from Yud Aleph to Luchavs, learn all the sichos of Chelek Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. What's the foundation of all those sichos? The foundation is Kabbalah's oil that you do because you're told to do, whether you understand or you don't understand. To chas v'sholem, think that because I don't understand, so therefore either I'm just going to ignore 2 years of sichos, I'm going to stash it away, put it, lock it up, and close myself because I verstehe es nicht. It's very scary. How can we? Then the other thought that occurred to me, which I think is very important. Anybody that has a tiny little bit of a whiff of Chassidus knows that the root of the connection of a Yid with the Eibishter, the root and the connection of a Yid with Elokus, the Alter Rebbe explains, is not in Bina, it's not in your Seichel, but it's in Chachma. Chachma is the Nekudas Abitel, L'mayla Metam V'das. Simply why? Because you're connecting to Or Ein Soif, you're connecting to an infinite being that infinitely transcends Seichel. And Leis Machshava Tfisa Beiklal, there's no thought that can grasp him. And therefore the only Inyan that can connect to the Eibishter is the Bittel of Yechidah Shebenefesh or Chachma Shebenefesh, the Koyach Ma. That's where the Yid is a Yid. The Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya that the Jewishness of the Jew is dependent on the Lamayla Metam V'das, on the craziness. And here's a very, very important inyan. The Alter Rebbe says, Behemo Yisayisi Imach. The way to be with the Eibishter is not a Chacham. Behemo Yisayisi Imach. I am with you because I'm a Behema. Sometimes I think that wouldn't it be a nice thing? I don't know how nice it would be, but it would be a correct thing. That we should gather all Chassidim, intellectuals, Balei Haskalah, people that understand, and I'm a nobody. There are people that have knowledge and deep and know ayin beis and samachvon, and have such vast knowledge, both in Nigla and Chassidus. If we should gather all of them, I would love to join as well. And mamish, I don't know if we have to take off our clothing or not, but we should all get down on all four. We should lock the door because we will put down the blinds because we don't want to make this public. And we should all sit together and go moo, moo, moo like a cow. Why? You look at me? Because then we get stuck in our own seichel. When we think that our mind is a barometer, the mind knows. This is it's not, you're not connecting. Then we're losing our whole, the Baal Shem Tov, the Chassidim, we're all known as Meshigoyim. Chassidus is an inyan l'mayla metam v'das. It's l'mayla min ha-seichel. The chiddush of the Alter Rebbe was that he took the l'mayla min ha-seichel and he brought it down in seichel. To chas v'sholem disconnect from an inyan, so when you're told, what does it mean b'poyel mamish? When you're told by a Rebbe, when you're told clear oisi, I said, there's no question. Anybody that sits and learns the Sichos will see clearly that we were given exact instructions, what our avodah is, and so on and so forth. It is so clear. But if we can't relate to it because our minds can't fathom it, because we have questions, because we're looking at what we call facts on the ground, so and so, we have a lamas vestadim. And I'll add one more interest upon Nekuda. You know, the Rebbe has so many Sichos where the Rebbe tells us that the Nisayan right before Moshiach comes is al yizbayish mipnei hamaligim olav, not to be embarrassed from those who make fun. I want to ask my dear fellow shluchim across the world a simple question. Today's days, who is malig on a Chabad house? Who laughs at you for doing miftzayim? Who laughs at you for Adarabah? The whole world is happy. People from all, everybody's happy. Everybody's happy there's a mikveh. Everybody's happy there's kosher food. Everybody recognizes Lubavitch's Mesiras Nefesh. Everybody cherishes it. Everybody. The whole world is clapping bravo, bravo, bravo to Lubavitch. No, everybody. The one thing that people do laugh sometimes, ooh, the Gleipsten, whatever, Mr. Vendia Chevra, you are from those guys. This is the Inyan of Maligan Olav. And in this Gufat, the Rebbe gesagt that this is an Asayan. And a person likes his kavod atzmi, a person wants to be respected, so a person is uncomfortable with the idea that he should be laughed on. But let me ask one more question, my dear friends. Doesn't it make sense that we know the Eibishter, the way he works, we don't understand why? Well, Chassidus maybe gives explanation. Before every gilui, before every relation, there's always a concealment. There's always a concealment. There's always a challenge. So it makes sense. Let me add, doesn't it make sense that before the greatest revelation of all of time, nothing parallels Moshiach. Nothing ever will parallel Bias HaMashiach. This is the ultimate Gilui. Doesn't it make sense in our minds that before that, there will be a concealment, and a very tough concealment, and it will be hard? The Heilige Ruzhiner said that right before Mashiach comes, to hold on to the Amunah is going to be like hanging from a rope. You're holding on to a rope. People are literally hanging from a rope. You're holding on. But right before Mashiach comes, they're going to take the rope and they're going to go like this, and people are going to fly because you can't hold on. And to hold on, you have to hold on with Mesiras Nefesh Mamish. Who is the Ruzhiner talking about? Such a big challenge of Amun. It's hard today, ich verstehe, to be a fromme Yid. But it's not. Who is it? It's talking about believing in Mashiach. It's talking about holding on in this. We're holding right by that last threshold, and there's powerful storm winds blowing, and they're blowing and blowing and blowing, and we have to just push forward and get through it. But here is the Indian. When you learn the Sichos, and you learn the Meimorim, and you learn in Yanagil Mashiach, then all that klippa dissipates. All that confusion just disappears, and it becomes so clear, and it becomes so lebedig, and it becomes so real. So someone will say, Wolf, was bist du etwas redner Heinten Lubavitch? You're telling Chassidim, I'm not. I'm telling you right now, I am really not, a big mashpia and a big rav and a big this. I don't have to tell you. People will say, the guy the Streimer is going to tell me what to do. Ich bin schon a Shliach for 50 years. I'm so and so. And you know what? Maybe not. Even if I'm not a Lubavitcher. Okay? I didn't have a Lubavitcher moil. Okay? Let's say not. Let me ask you, since when does Lubavitch have the only rights on Mashiach? Meaning to say, let me explain what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Mashiach only Lubavitch? Mashiach is for the entire world. What does it mean Mashiach is for the entire world? When the Eibishter created the world from the very beginning, this is the Kavanah. For them there was Lech Lecha Me'artzecha. There were 10 Nisyonis. There was Akedas Yitzchak. There was Matan Torah, there was Golus Mitzrayim, where Paroi was bathing in the blood of Jewish children, how many children. There was 6 million Jews just recently went into the flames. Al Kiddush Hashem, there was an inquisition, there were pogroms, there was suffering. We Jews are unbelievable. Oceans of tears, rivers of blood. And what? So that we should come to this moment. And the Rebbe is the one who is the achrayus to bring Moshiach. And the Rebbe said, Chassidim, you have to do it shluchim. It's your job to do it. Don't I have the right to call out to shluchim and say, at this moment, chas v'shalom, should we abandon our shlichus because it doesn't make any sense? Because I can't fit it in my mind. And I'm so terrified to open up the sichus and learn it and then allow the amunah I really have, but to allow that amunah to come out. It's frightening, it scares us, but that's the question. This is not over here, it's a nice thing, Moshiach. This is it! This is what it was all about from the very beginning. For us to ignore it is a problem. So therefore, just to conclude is as follows. The reason why I was able to absorb and have this, to a certain degree, transformation from myself was because I was able to pick up a sefer that took all in Yonim, what we call Oiros Tetoyu, and it explained it B'Kelim the Tikkun, in a manner that is gentle, not aggressive, not in your face. You can sense that there was no agenda over there, even though he doesn't hide, there's Yechi on the cover. But it's a very, very clean and clear, easy read. And you can connect to it, and he explains it, and it makes sense. Stam, if I'm coming around in general before that, and I'm hearing just a slogan or just this, it didn't work for me. Not that I'm saying chas v'shalom it's a problem, it didn't work. What I am asking and saying, today is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. It's easy, chas v'shalom, for us to reach out and say, Yener is shuldik and Yener is shuldik. But bottom line, 26 years later, or 23 years after Gimel Tammuz, v'adayin lo ba. And therefore, the cheshbon hanefesh has to be for us too over here. And what's the cheshbon hanefesh? Are we creating enough kelim of tikkun? Are we articulating it in a manner that people can understand? In the Sichos and the Maimarim, whenever the Rebbe talks about the Oir HaBligavul after coming into the Kelim, the Rebbe doesn't only blame the Kelim for being rigid and strong and not accepting the Oir. The Rebbe blames the Oir too. The Oir too is being too aggressive. The Oir doesn't want to consider that there's a Keli, because the Oir is so close to the Etzem, it wants to just say, this is the way it is, and I don't want to be mitzamtzim the Inyan. Chavre, it's important for us as well. We can't do it our own. We need shluchim from the entire world. We can't continue in a state, and you should know, everybody can see, I'm not a party man, I don't belong here, I don't belong there, this is all narishkeit to me. Simple Indian, there's a Rebbe, Moshiach has to come, it has to happen right now, and we have to stop being petty. All of us have to grow up and say, Yid medarf ton, genig is genug, we need to make it happen. And on both ends, we have to join together, we have to join, for now as a Yidden. There are people across the world who have such abilities to take and explain and bring things down. I want to make a practical haitzah. I want to give a practical thing that we can do. Sometime, I don't know now, as the Kinus Hashluchim, we're leaving, people are going back home. Sometime over the next few months, Shluchim should get together from across the spectrum, and again, it can't be with any sense of nitzchaynes. It can't be with any sense that it has to be my way or the highway. It has to be with an achdus, with a desire for the kavanah pnimis. And what do we want? We want to sit together. We want to learn the sichos, but we also want that every shliach who has the ability to be able to take the inyanim from the B'li Gavul and be malbishit in hezbaris in a way that we can understand. So we can empower shluchim across. I know it's done, but it could be done so much better and so much stronger. People, mamish geniuses, people mamish, and chevre from olam hatikun, if you can say. Mamish tikun shebet tikun. These are people that have abilities, they have such clarity. If we can all sit together and say, chevre, enough is enough, we're going to sit together, we're going to take we're not watering down the Indian. The Indian is the Indian, k'moy shahu, but azoivi das is, we're going to bring it into Kalim, the Tikkun, and manners that people can learn and understand. We were given a job to do it, and if we were given the job to do it, we could do it, and we will do it, and we will get this Indian done. And not Indian, what Indian? This is ours. We will bring his galus of Moshiach, and may it happen. Takif and takif and takif. Umiyad, mamish. I know, perhaps on some level, I'm speaking over here and saying what I'm saying, and I understand that this is not exactly accordance to everybody's rules and regulations, but I'm just going to say that be'eis hazois, all I can remember is what Mordechai said. Im hachreish tachrishi be'eis hazois. This is not a time for quiet. And I hear what Esther answers when Esther says, "Ubechein avoy el hamelech v'kasher avodati." Whatever the mina nish negeya, what's the mina negeya? What's negeya is one inyan bechein avoy el hamelech. We are all coming today to Melech HaMoshiach. We're here l'chaim. We should merit. There should be this galus of Moshiach now. L'chaim.